Welcome to the comeback season, where we have real conversations about fueling your body, rebuilding strength, and stepping back into the life you were meant to live. Whether you've been caring for kids, aging parents, or just lost sight of your own needs, we see you. And this is your season to rise. Hello, my name is Nichole McLeod with Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. I'm a mindset and fitness coach and the author of I Started on a Tuesday. I know what it feels like to lose yourself in the chaos and still hold on to the hope that something better is coming.
And I'm Christy Kelsey from Christy Counts Macros, nutrition and mindset coach and food freedom advocate. I've worked with lots of women who felt stuck, restricted, and unsure where to even begin. Together, we're bringing you honest conversations, healing truths, and real strategies to help you rise again, physically, mentally, and emotionally, whether you've hit rock bottom or you're just tired of putting yourself last. This space is for you because this is your comeback season and it starts right now.
Welcome back to the comeback season, the space where we talk about rising through the mess, rebuilding what was broken, and remembering who you were always meant to be. When we talk about our comebacks, we usually think about life after failure, heartbreak, or loss. But sometimes the hardest comeback is the one that starts quietly in the place that no one else even sees. The moments when we realize that our coping mechanisms, the scrolling, the drinking, the overthinking, the emotional shutdown, have become something we depend on and really is the thing that we think gets us through our day. Addiction isn't always loud. And sometimes it's the silent drift away from ourselves and our identity. And the journey back, the healing, the rewiring, the rediscovery of our worth. And that, my friend, is where the transformations happen. And that is our conversation today. Addiction isn't always loud, and we need to remember that. And sometimes it's just a little new perspective that helps us along the way. Joining me today is someone who walks that comeback with compassion and science beautifully intertwined. Kathryn Eipl, the founder of EIPL Healing, which stands for, and I love this acronym, every individual person is love. Kathryn helps people reconnect to safety, retrain their nervous system, and rediscover who they are beneath the layers of the pain and the coping. Kathryn, welcome to the comeback season. I'm so grateful to have you here. This topic really hits home for me. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got started on this journey?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on the comeback season. I appreciate this. I love sharing this story, and I think it is really important to shed some light on addiction because there is such a heavy stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, working, I and so about me before I launch into it, as I can easily just get into it. I used to work as a project manager in the entertainment industry and specifically for live events and productions. And while I was doing that, I just started to get very worn down. And it was also something that the more that I did it, the more that I was learning about myself that that wasn't the type of work that was igniting my fire. I wasn't passionate about it, though I was really good at it and competent. Um, but because it wasn't fully aligned for me, I started uh, draining that feeling, that emotion with alcohol and cannabis because that was something I wasn't wanting to face. I had spent my whole life practically at that point working toward becoming a project manager in entertainment. So the fact that I was now feeling like this was not the thing that I should be doing, I felt like a failure. And to avoid feeling that, I went into substances and it started off quietly. It wasn't something where it was like, oh, the next day I was all of a sudden an alcoholic. It was just, okay, I'm going after work. Traffic in LA is bad because was living in LA during that time. Traffic's bad. Okay, there's a bar right next to the office. Let's go. Happy hour. And
Yeah.
then come home. And then it would drink more. So I was like, oh no, it's just like a habitual thing. Little did I realize at the time that your habits can become addictions, especially if your habits involve substances. Uh, so it wasn't until a few years later that I'd made that connection of like the habit is the addiction. And that's when I made a conscious effort to change my lifestyle. I started doing one of the things to help me because I was very depressed when I was working in entertainment and I was going to therapy, working with coaches, just really trying anything I could to get out of that. Still drinking, still abusing cannabis, very much so. Uh, and one of the things where I was like, I don't want to feel like this. I felt like I was just living a boxed life where I would wake up, go to work, drink, smoke, sleep, come home, do the same thing, repeat.
Repeat.
And I'm like, there's more to life than this.
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting back into yoga, which was something that I used to do in grad school. And once I was done with grad school, I just got so busy with my career that I didn't have the time, or I told myself I didn't have the time. So I started going back to a physical practice of yoga, which did help some. And then eventually the uh, yoga studio that I went to was offering a teacher training, and I decided to take it simply with the thought of my work schedule changes so much that if I learn how to do yoga for my body, I don't have to rely on going to a class. I can just find the time in my day to do it for myself. And during that 3-month process of the yoga teacher training, I really started to look at my lifestyle. I started to understand what the alcohol was actually doing, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally to me. And I started to cut down, eventually cut it out. And that's where I had so many emotional breakthroughs. And through that pain that I was suppressing and pushing down was where I birthed my business. Every individual person is love, healing. And that's also the time that I created that acronym out of my name because I really understood and realized for the first time that no matter what we as people are doing in our lives, we are all just striving
Yeah. To
for
do our
love
best.
and to do our best.
Yeah.
So whether that's getting love from someone else, most of the time it's self-love. Uh, and that's that's where
It's
it
an
came
amazing
from.
story. To be honest with you, I just found myself forgetting we're on a podcast right now and listening to your story. Wait.
Oh, thank
That
you.
honestly, that inspired me. That's awesome. It's clear that your work is deep rooted, and let's get it. I think that's going to bring us into our first talking point is the turning point, the moment where the wake up call is, and you finally realize that aha moment. So let's talk about that moment of transformation, the beginning of it.
Okay, let's see if I can do this without getting emotional myself.
Let it out.
Um, so that turning point, that big turning point also comes from one, a few different heartbreaks at that same time. Because often when you're going through a period of transitioning from one version of your life into another, there are a lot of different breaking points, whether that becomes a mental breaking point or emotional. And for me in this case, it was all emotional, a little bit mental, of course, but mostly on the emotional front. So I was leaving my job that I had done for a few years at a corporate company that was just like a very cushy job. I had insurance through them. You know, Um,
It was safe.
it was safe, it was comfortable, and my contract, I was with them contract based. So once my contract ended, they were trying to keep me on, but they didn't have funding. And then at the last minute, the day before my last day, my boss came to me and was like, "You know what? We can keep you on a monthly basis. So like we can kind of check in with you every month to decide like to see if like the funding's
Thanks.
come through." Right. And
Great
so
idea.
so I just like looked at him and I was like, are you really serious right now? 'Cause one, I've already started making other commitments for work. And you're telling me that at any moment I may or may not have a job the next month, which means my insurance benefits, my health care, all of that would be pulled out from underneath me. I'm like, no, that's, I'm just gonna build myself. Like, no. Um, so I was going through that of leaving that at the same time I was in a breakup of the longest relationship I'd had at that point. And that was also somebody who I thought that I was gonna, move in with, marry. We were talking about all of those things. So then when that relationship ended, that hit hard. And my best friend at the time was living in Florida. And that was, she'd maybe been there for a few months. So I was still learning, like, okay, my my person that I would go to and confide in for this is now across the country from me.
Mhm.
What what do I do? And I dove into cannabis so much more because that was my way of self-soothing,
Mhm.
self-medicating. And I would like text my friend, randomly, like, oh, this pain, it just like hurts. I would say, like, I just want him back. And uh, she would do her best, of course, comfort me, listen to me. And then it was just one night where like I smoked so much, I passed out on my couch. Netflix was still playing on my TV. I woke up probably at like 2 or 4 in the morning, something ridiculous. And the lights on in my house were all on. And I just remember thinking, like, this is so pathetic. And I'm not this person. Like, I made a promise to myself in my early 20s when I went through my first, like, real gnarly breakup where I was never going to be that person again. And I was like, no, I'm
And
not
here
going
I
to
am.
let yeah. And I was like, here I am. I'm not succumbing to this anymore. Like, I'm done. I'm going to draw this line in the sand for me. And at that moment, I grabbed my phone because I was like, I need accountability to just like mark the time to understand that I'm done feeling this way and I'm not going to let myself fall into it. So I texted my best friend and I was like, I'm done feeling this way. Like, I'm not going to feel this way anymore. I'm going to let it go and I'm moving forward. And I was like, I just need you to constantly remind me of that when I start to fall back, if I start to fall back. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, well, I was already coming to terms with the fact that I didn't want to work in entertainment. Now that I'm not at this company, what what do I want to do? I had already started teaching yoga. I was getting my Reiki certification. So then it just felt natural to transition more into that line of work and to really just relinquish the entertainment side completely. So then it became, okay, well, what can I do? How can I brand this, right? Because that would have been 2017. So that's when branding was like the big thing.
Yeah.
And I was working with one of the studio owners that I was teaching yoga class at. And I was telling her about it and picking her brain because she started her own exercise method, and that's what her studio was. And I was like, well, I kind of want it to be like EIPL yoga or EIPL healing. And she was like, okay, but what does EIPL mean? Because that's the question people are gonna get. And right away, I didn't even have to think about it. I was just like, every individual person is love. And she's like,
I
but is
love
that
it.
what it means? And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it is absolutely what it means.
Yeah. I love that. That's so powerful. A couple things hit home for me. Step one, accountability, and being accountable to somebody else is so important because we're weak, we're human. There's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be our bad days, but it does start with you being accountable to yourself. When you had that moment that hit
Mm-hmm.
home, that pain, you just had enough, right? We think that let's just self-soothe that pain, but when it comes down to it, we're just masking it. We're just putting a little block over it so we don't feel it. So that accountability to yourself, and then getting that accountability partner is really, really important. And then the next thing that hit home is you mentioned like the signs, the signals your body's trying to tell you, right? Like, why do we look at that addiction as this bad thing? Like, I of course it is a bad thing, but that's not who we are. We look at a person that they are the addiction. Well, no, they're just a little bit off, and they haven't figured out that their triggers are actually signs of, they need to get curious. So just
Exactly.
having a family, extended families full of I have so much addiction. I think many of us as human beings, we all have addiction to something. There's always something in someone, especially with substances. But that's to get curious about the reason why, deep rooted usually, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
times. Yeah, no, that's powerful.
Well, and I don't know if you're familiar with Gabor Mate and his work at all around addiction,
No,
but he
actually.
he was addicted to buying opera music and classical music. And it got really bad because he was spending all of his money on doing that. And so he is a psychiatrist and started really examining it. And he truly believes that it's not about the addiction as the problem. It's really about why the addiction. Why is it there? What is causing you to feed into that addiction?
Yeah, that's
And,
so accurate.
and that's what I see so often when I work with clients. I work at a addiction recovery center locally in San Diego, and it's it's never just the addiction. There's always an event or a moment or a series of events that have caused that to transpire. And for me, it was really avoiding the feeling of failure, the feeling of giving up like it was a bad thing, because that was how I was viewing it. Was
Mhm.
walking away from entertainment was a bad thing because it mean that I failed. I invested so much money in myself to go to grad school, and I'm like, great, I have all these student loans that essentially mean nothing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
actually reframe because it gave me a lot of useful skills that I use in my business today.
Mhm.
Um, and that's why I get so sad when I hear people talk about addiction and stigmatize it,
Yes.
where
And
someone is,
identify with it.
where they're like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I'm addicted to Coke or whatever it is. And like, that's their thing that they identify with. And as
Mhm.
long as you identify with it, you're going to keep feeding into it. So at some point, you have to take your power back. And that's once I had hit all of that pain, emotional pain, that's when I was like, no, I don't have to do this. Like, yes, it hurts. Yes, it's going to be painful. And I can take my power back and crawl myself out of this hole that I actually put myself into. And I don't want to look at the fact that I put myself into, but now it's time. Because if I put
Mhm.
myself in, I can get myself out.
There's so many parallels in the wellness industry. So you're a yoga instructor. I'm a fitness instructor, been a personal trainer for 30 years. It's been my jam for as long as I can
Right.
remember, essentially. And now in the last, I've had a lot of catastrophic things happen in my little world in the last few years. And it's really been in the last year that I've dug deep into neuroscience. And
Hmm.
honestly, identical to what you just said. I got to the point where I'm like, I couldn't either go to all these counselors and go to these groups and pay all this money, or I can just get certified myself and learn how to do this so then I can help other people. And I am so glad I took that route, because what I learned and what I'm now incorporating, and not in just my own life, but my clients, and to learn that all these years of my fitness, and yeah, don't get me wrong, good programming is important. Don't get me wrong with
Oh,
the,
right. Yeah.
nutrition's important.
Hmm.
However, foundationally to everything that functions in you is your nervous system. And if you're not
Yes.
dealing with the nervous system, nothing else is going to go, nothing else is going to work, everything, and right down to addiction. And it's like, and then right down with my clients now, I don't even start out with what, don't get me wrong, of exercise or previous injuries important and where a
Hmm.
person's in
Oh,
life. And
yeah.
yes, of course we do those assessments, but the first assessment, were you bullied as a child? What did you think of yourself? Who do you think? What do you think of yourself now? What is the biggest critic? Let's talk about the critic. What do you tell yourself all day long? Because what you identify with is who you become. And so, for example, with my clients say, I can't do that. Or I say, well, can you not do that? Or have you chosen not to do that? Or I'm big boned. That's just not for me. Have you chosen that? Have you identified with that? But you can take this. I just realized as you're talking about addiction, it's the parallels are astounding because it comes
Yes.
down to the root of the problem is not
Hmm.
the addiction that you identify as. The addiction, you can think of it as it's just your coping mechanism. That's just the band-aid that you've tried to pretend. It's not the thing, right? So that's
Yeah.
that's very, very interesting. So let's we're going to get into a little bit about the science behind that and the actual of rewiring that nervous system and what we can do about it, because this is we both know, being in this space now, that the transformations are possible, and it starts with just awareness.
Yeah. Awareness is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're aware and wake up to the fact that your body has a nervous system, it knows how to regulate itself. And traumas happen, throws the nervous system off. So then it's learning how to, one, connect back into that nervous system because coping mechanisms like addictions cut that off.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you open up to that awareness, that understanding that your body can recalibrate itself, that's where the magic starts to happen because then you
Mm-hmm.
can identify when you start to get triggered and you feel your body go into fight or flight mode. Like, where does that start in your body?
Mm-hmm.
What does that feel like for you?
Where
It,
is it stored is what I really want to just add on to that, because I don't think a
mm-hmm.
lot of people realize that trauma gets stored in your body. And if you don't do something about it, it doesn't just go away. You have
Right.
to act.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book called The Body Keeps Score,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, you're familiar with that book, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a good book.
I love that book
Mm-hmm.
where he's dealing with um people, veterans who were in Vietnam and how they have all this PTSD and they're learning about where it's stored in the body and how it's been manifesting in their life since returning. It's just so powerful because, like you said, if we don't process our trauma, our emotions, it is living somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in our body. So we have to take the action to work through that.
You know
Uh,
what's just coming in my head right now? And this is so funny, and to be transparent, I just pictured this snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you were talking. And I was like, that's interesting. And that's exactly what it is. If you have
mhm.
trauma, if something happens to you and you don't do anything about it by recognizing it, processing it in your nervous system, dealing with it, it's going to just snowball and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, all these things in life that happen and your challenges stem from that massive snowball now. When if you just would have dealt with it, the top of the hill, you wouldn't have been bigger.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been smushed by your own
Yes.
snowball,
Yeah.
if you had dealt with it at the time. And like that's what happened to me with my substance use, where I was just like, oh, it's fine. It's
Mm-hmm.
habitual. It's just social drinking. It's fine. Yeah, okay, so I smoke, whatever. This is California.
It's socially acceptable. And this is
Like,
another problem with addiction, because when it's
mhm.
socially acceptable, it can become a problem.
Yeah. And it wasn't until my heart was breaking in all different directions where I was like, actually, as much as I don't want to feel the pain that's in my heart, if I don't feel it, I'm just gonna comatose myself with weed, with alcohol, and then what is that gonna do to me? Like, it was already starting to cause um, arguments with certain family members of myself because they were trying to tell me that I had a problem, and I'm like, no, I don't.
Totally don't.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm not smoking right now. I'm fine.
Yeah. Prove it. Absolutely.
Right.
I think a
Uh,
lot of people think that it takes willpower to stop. It doesn't take willpower. I know that sounds ridiculous, but your system and your nervous system's ability to cope and do anything for you is your foundation, and it is what dictates your willpower. So if you haven't dealt with that little underlying problem, you're not going to have that willpower.
yeah. And it's like the motivation and the desire to change.
Yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily willpower. You have to actually want it.
Mm-hmm.
And th that's
Which I guess
where,
is kind of willpower, right? The power to do the will that you want. But when you think that it's just you're as a human going to have the one tomorrow's going to be the day that I'm going to be strong. Just as the last day today, tomorrow I'm going to have that. You think you're going to have the ability to say no. And
hmm.
really that's not how it works.
Yeah, or it's like people think that, okay, well, I'm ending my addiction, so from today on, I'm never gonna have any substance. And it's like, there is, you are gonna have moments where you relapse and you fall
Mm-hmm.
back, especially at the beginning. That doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that it is such a hardwired pattern within your nervous system that your body, it's muscle memory for
It
your
is.
body. So it's like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. I'm feeling a certain kind of way. What do I do when I feel this kind of way? Oh, I grab these things and I use them.
Let's talk about that actually, because I think that's very important. And this is what I really try to just nail home with clients is that subconscious reaction, that thing that you do a lot of the times is not controllable. It's something
Mm-hmm.
you act on. You just said that. So that's why it's so important that you align with that identity of who you want to be. Because as long
Yes.
as you identify and you're focused on that person that you know you want to be, those old habits, those old patterns, I don't want to call them habits, those old patterns and those neural pathways, get rerouted. But the only way we can reroute them is if we live out the identity of the person that we're even becoming. And in that process, we need to remember that it is biologically wired. Beating yourself up about that is not going to serve you. It's going to work against you. So,
Mm-hmm.
giving yourself grace in this process, if it's addiction, losing weight, getting in shape, whatever it is, it starts with the awareness of it, aligning yourself with it, but giving yourself grace along the way, because this isn't something that was just wired in your head overnight. Like, you have to think of it like grass. Like, if you have really long grass, you haven't mowed your lawn in a while, if you walk back and forth 1,000 times, every time it's going to go lower, you're going to wear it down. And it takes time to kind of bounce back up a little bit. It doesn't happen overnight. But if
Right.
you start a new happy path, then the grass is going to go on the other side, and the stuff that you used to go on isn't going to be serving you anymore, right? So we have to remember that our brains navigate to what we know because it's what we've taught ourselves as safety. And our brains need to feel safe. So if our brains don't feel safe, they go, but then we lose it essentially. And the safety to our brains is not necessarily what's good for us. It's what we
Yeah.
know. So we're going to, of
It
course, navigate back.
because it's that comfort, because
Mm-hmm.
even though it might not be um comforting as the feeling, like maybe it is suffering, maybe there's wallowing, but
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we have patterned into ourselves, we find comfort in the fact that knowing that that's how we feel. So then we just
Mm-hmm.
stay there longer.
Yes, that's good.
Hmm.
That's powerful. Um, I want to talk a little bit now about when someone finally starts to feel safe, and like that because that's what we need to go after, that, you know,
Hmm.
rewiring of the mind, that reconstruction process. It's not a fast thing. And if anything, if you do it too quickly, you actually have more of a chance of going back, making small changes. Your brain can't handle more than, little baby steps. Let's talk
Right.
about that, and how you coach your clients through that and why that's important. So basically our
Okay.
reconstruction now.
So we're in reconstruction mode. We've already identified how your body feels in fight or flight, and uh, what the triggers are, and you're starting to build up that safety in yourself. So now it's let's really hone in to that version of ourselves that we want to become. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do they do? How do they carry themselves? How do they talk? Is there Are there habits that they do, whether it's working out regularly, eating a certain way, uh, just going out in nature? And once that is like, because we go into the details, like how do they even talk? What do they wear? Do they wear different clothes than what you wear now? Because then, all right, we've got to start embodying that, um, and upgrade, change the wardrobe appropriately. And as we do this, and you're gonna notice, like, I call it playing the tape. So with cognitive behavioral therapy, there's a section where you're starting to identify all of your thoughts, and
Mm-hmm.
you're identifying uh, where there's evidence that supports those thoughts. And a lot of times, like the negative thoughts that we have of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, um, I could never do that, usually that all comes from past trauma,
Mm-hmm.
past situations, but nothing there's no evidence in our present day that supports that. Instead, there's an abundance of evidence that goes against those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So we compare those of like, okay, well, where did these thoughts transpire from? And when in your life was that? Oh, 10 years ago. Okay, well, what's the evidence now in present day that you're not worthy or that you can't do something? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you started your own business, you moved across the country that you were in, you reestablish your career or what have you. Okay, that shows that you're capable. You're capable of making change. That's the
Self-worth
evidence.
is so important,
Mm-hmm.
and believing in yourself.
Yeah. So once you have the evidence, it becomes easier to start believing in yourself and to
Mm-hmm.
realize that like you are worthy of change, of greatness, because you had this idea that you essentially didn't amount to anything and weren't worthy of anything, to realizing that you have created a whole different life for yourself despite what you thought.
Yeah. You just said something really important, is the evidence part of it. And I don't think a lot of people realize how important it is along the way, as the transformation of this person you're becoming, to be looking at the evidence. And when that critic starts coming, you got to put that on trial and you got to
Mm-hmm.
really break that down. Because when you do that, for example, I have a friend slash client that we've been working with, and one of her biggest fears is going to the gym. And the reason for that is because she's scared of what people are going to think of her and what
Mm,
people are going to watch. And I said, okay, my first question is, do you think people go to the gym to watch people? Maybe some, but probability. So, hey, let's go to the gym and just be the observer. Let's just sit, You're not even, don't even work out, casually walk on the treadmill, do whatever. And just, I want you to take a look and find the evidence of who's actually looking at you. Now, granted, if you start staring at someone, the probability of them looking at you is probably high.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But when then the reason I asked her to do that is because that's the evidence her brain needs. Our brains
Mm-hmm.
need evidence. So if you want to change awareness, yes, self-worth, of course, but you need to show your brain that evidence. And that's usually the wake up moment, the aha moment. And then when you see the evidence and it's working for you or against you,
Yeah.
you kind of start looking more at the root,
Mm-hmm.
I find.
No, that's completely true. I love that you share that story and that you asked her to go to the
Mm-hmm.
gym and be the observer because you're right. Not many people go to the gym to watch other people, you know?
Nope.
That's a place where people are going to get out of their heads, work on
Mm-hmm.
themselves, to not pay attention.
That's right.
Um, and that's a huge thing because as humans, we build our own reality, and a lot of us lose sight of that. So when
Yeah.
we call it back to, okay, in reality, what is the actual evidence? It highlights for you, and you have that, like, oh, that aha moment of, okay, so that was all just in my head that I was creating, but actually,
Mm-hmm.
I am capable. I am worthy of having good things because my life is pretty good right now.
Yeah.
So let's continue. Let's make it even better.
And
Uh,
of course, it starts in the mind. It starts with the belief and the awareness. And of course, like we just talked about, the evidence. But we would be robbing our listeners if we didn't talk about how many practical tools there are that aren't really difficult to do, that can help this. So let's talk a little bit about those practical self connection tools.
yeah, so some things that you can do, because you really want to, once you're in that fight or flight moment, you can feel that anxiety coming in. Your body starts getting hot, you're shaky, your
Mm-hmm.
heartbeat is probably racing. The easiest tool and the tool that you will always have no matter what is your breath.
Mm-hmm. Breath work.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And it doesn't even need to be intense breath work. It can be as simple as bringing your awareness to your own breath.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we are activated in that fight or flight mode, we are breathing really fast and really shallow. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's just going to amplify the feelings of not feeling safe, of anxiety, of fear. So when you take control over your breath and you take a really deep inhale and extend your exhale, making it longer than your inhale, you are consciously activating the parasympathetic nervous system. You're going back into that relaxation mode. You're telling your physical body you are safe. You don't need to react in overdrive. And doing that for a minute,
Yeah.
less like even 30 seconds, will help
Two
shift
breaths.
your mood
Yeah.
drastically. And so that's one big tool that you can do for quick and easy regulation. Another thing is grounding. I love connecting with nature. So if I get really stressed, and it's even been scientifically proven in several different studies that if you're anxious and you feel like you're overthinking, what will help that is actually going outside and walking in nature, taking a hike,
Yeah.
uh, or even just like putting your feet on the ground or on the grass.
My
And
friend, magical, no sock shoes, bare feet on that grass, breath work, sunshine, moving your body. You want the best antidepressant on planet Earth. Woo, powerful.
hmm yeah, and you
Yeah.
can even visualize like that sun is beaming a light into your head and just
Mhm.
pushing down all of that anxiety out of your body into the earth and let the earth transmute that for you. And of like, so there's grounding, which huge fan. And then also sound. Sound can
Yeah.
be a big thing to help regulate the body. So, many different ways you can do that. There's music therapy, which you can get calm music to listen to, and also sound therapy with instruments like singing bowls, whether they're crystal or Tibetan bowls, gongs, rain sticks, things like that. And that's one of the things that I use and incorporate in my sessions with my clients because sound therapy has actually been around since ancient times in several different ancient civilizations. In Egypt, it was a requirement that the high priestesses would have to have some sort of musical uh, capabilities because the pharaohs would often call them
It's
in when they
biblical,
were
my friend.
stressed. Oh,
It's a
yeah.
thing that has been around. The tuning forks works. Amazon, $60.
Hmm.
They and there's different frequencies for different feelings, but this was created with us,
Yeah.
gifted
And
to
we,
us. Yes.
and there was like an innate ability that humans knew how to heal themselves. Like
Yep.
Reiki technically was founded in like 1922 under the name Reiki, but that means universal life force energy. And there's that school of thought where healing hands, using energy with your hands, has been around as long as humans have walked this earth. And as
Mhm.
our society got built up, that just information got, you know, further removed because we got inundated with other things. Uh,
Quantum physics is a real thing. No one can argue it. Is the reality
yes.
to it.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Um,
what about one that absolutely use now, and I would have made fun of somebody for doing just a year ago?
oh,
Tapping, like
oh yeah.
tapping, like holy crow! When I'm really stressed, like it really just brings down that nervous system. There was actually a study done. I'm probably going to butcher this, so don't hold me on this one. But there was a study. They did a group of people that have been had PTSD from war, and they did this session with them, and they did a study on their cortisol levels before they did this tapping session. They measured their cortisol levels. How you do that, I don't know, but that was what they did. And then they went through this tapping session and realized that everyone's cortisols were reduced by at least 40%. One tapping session. Look it up. But
I
that's interesting.
will.
Something so profound, so easy to do and simple to do. It's not difficult. And pair that with a mindset of telling yourself what you need to be hearing because you know darn well
Hmm.
what you need to be hearing. Is just that
Yeah.
one is for me is magical, lack of better
Yeah.
words.
Tapping is a good one. And a similar study was done on Reiki and comparing it to one physical massage. So it was done in a hospital where they had people recovering from uh, surgeries, where they were given the choice to have either a 1 hour massage or a 1 hour Reiki session. And what they found was that the people that opted to have the Reiki session recovered faster and they experienced more long-term uh, relaxation and calmness. Whereas the people who had the physical massage, yes, for that hour, they felt relaxed and calm, but then it immediately went away after, like once the massage was done. Whereas Reiki, it was a steady incline of feeling better, of getting back into that calm state, out of that stressful mind, worrying of like, okay, well, how am I going to recover?
Mm-hmm.
How is my body doing? It developed more of a trust of, oh, yeah, my energy and my body know what to do as long as I give it that positive reinforcement that I'm going to be okay.
That's interesting. I all I can say to our listeners, if you're rolling your eyes like I probably would have done a year ago, just challenge us on this. Do the things and just adding a little bit. Don't do all the things all at once. Just pick one and just slowly transition. Just play around with it. And that's honestly what I
Hmm.
did. I started with breath work and I caught myself. It was just the simple act of the observer awareness When
Mm-hmm.
I feel this, this is what I do. And to step back and acknowledge that was really a starting point for me. Another big one, journaling,
Oh,
writing it down, get that crap out of your head. And what I've learned about myself from writing, it's crazy. Like it's powerful. There's the your transformation, your answers to who you are, what foundationally what you were created to do are in you. You just gotta get them out by writing a little.
oh, 100%. Like, I am with you on that one. So, like, journaling was a huge part of my transition and like really facing those emotions that I had been suppressing and covering up with my addictions. And it was so much to the point where I was learning where they were stored in the body as I was deepening my yoga practice because I would move or I'd hold a pose and I'd start tearing up, I'd start crying, and it got to the point where those tears, because I'd be like, why am I crying? What am I feeling? Oh my gosh, I'm going back to this moment in my life and I'm like reliving it and feeling it play out in my
I'm tearing
body.
up just thinking of the
And
moment that happened to me. That's crazy.
and yeah, I had a journal by my yoga mat at my house just dedicated for those times. And I would go back and reread it, and I just didn't identify with the person that I used to be, which was so empowering because that showed me how much I was already changing and
Mhm.
transforming, even though I was actively in that transformation and I thought that I wasn't doing enough. But then here was evidence that I didn't identify with who I was like a year prior
Mhm.
because I was striving, I was aiming to be the person that I wanted to be, and I was much closer to her than I thought I was.
I don't know if this helped you in your transformation journey that we're all still on. We call it a transformation. Let's be honest, it's constant. It's a journey, but I name it. I name that version of me when she surfaces because she's not who I am. We all have tendencies. Sometimes if you become curious and you become the observer and make it fun for the brain,
Hmm.
be aware of it. Oh, okay, I'm my brain there's my brain trying to protect myself again because the brain again will always navigate to what it knows because what it knows is its safety. So if we kind of have a little fun with that, and I actually started doing this on my own, and to find out later as I'm getting all these certifications to teach this myself that it's actually a thing to do.
Yeah.
Name the thing. When you do slip up, because you're going to slip up, we all do, and I say this to my clients too with food, of course, with because I'm a coach for fitness. When it happens, identify it, observe it, be interested, be curious, because if you're curious about why that happened, you can get to the roots so much quicker.
Hmm. And if you shame it, you're actually going to push your
Ooh.
progress further away
Mm-hmm.
because you're not looking at the root of why it's there. You're just shutting it down and you're telling yourself, oh, again, I failed, or like,
Mm-hmm.
I suck. It's like, no, it's not about that. You're
Mm-hmm.
rewiring your nervous system. It is gonna take time. And
Yeah.
so be curious. I love that you work with that with your clients.
Oh,
It's
it's
so
I
important.
don't know many trainers that have done this, and I'm really excited about this because I just feel like I'm really tapping into a different, just whole other world to combine the two because mindset, everything starts in your mind. Addiction, nutrition, anything, any habit you want to start to, you know, create, any habit you want to get rid of and throw to the curb. So let's start talking about that a little bit. Behaviors and habits. So we talked about that. Let's embody and be the person you want to become because that's going to help you get there faster. But
Hmm.
identifying the habits and the habits that you don't even recognize, because those are there too. Let's
Yeah.
break that down.
Yeah. So it starts with like really looking at your life where you are right now. What do you do? What are the things that you do daily? What do you do when you are stressed, when you're worried? And then I work with clients once we have that of let's identify if that is helpful. Is that a positive thing for you? Okay. If it's not, then what do you feel is the more positive situation? Um, and we use cognitive behavioral therapy as a modality to help shift with that, because one of their things that I get so much value of and have had so many people seen just make so many realizations, transformations doing it, is playing the tape where you're presented with a situation and maybe your response would be to like go drink normally in the past, and you're like, okay, well, I'm stressed out. When I'm stressed out, I would drink. Okay, how is that going to go? Because you already know, you've been there, you've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's going to lead to a lower spiral, like a spiral downward. Or, okay, you want to build a new habit, you want to not drink. Okay, so you don't. You choose to go outside, go for a walk, play that tape forward. What does that look like? Are you getting in arguments with people? Are you able to regulate yourself without the use of a substance? Uh, and from during that exercise, that's when you're able to identify the habits that you want to embody, that you want to lean towards in those moments of stress, of anxiety, of fear. And then it is building in your everyday life just avenues toward those things, because you don't want
Mm-hmm.
to have to wait until you're stressed to do that. You want to already start having that practice available in your everyday life, because that's also
Mm-hmm.
part of who you want to become.
Yeah.
So mm, when I start doing it small, where, okay, say you want to go on an hour walk every day in the morning before you start your day. Just grab your coffee or your water bottle and just go walk around your neighborhood. Let's start small. Okay, if that's what you want to do and it's important for you to be outside, just go outside, maybe walk down the driveway, walk down the block just for 5 minutes. Then gradually build up. Okay, now we're at
And
10
tell
minutes.
yourself it's just for five
Like,
minutes. It's just,
yeah,
put my shoes on. 5 minutes. If I want to come back, I'll come back. Most times you'll go longer than five, but let's be honest.
yeah. You can put
Mm-hmm.
music in, just walk around, let yourself be in your own world, your own energy before starting your day, before going out to work. Um, And it's just like going to the gym and working out. It's a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
You building new habits is like building a muscle. You gotta be diligent and you start small and you do
Mm-hmm.
it. And also, it's like at the beginning, maybe it's not an everyday thing because you don't go to the gym every day. You've got to give your muscles time to relax and recoup.
Well, that's when
So,
the transformation happens, is during the rest. So that's something
hmm,
that's interesting. Hey.
yeah. So then it's okay, maybe you don't do that on the weekends and you create a sacred pause for yourself on the weekends,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that looks like. Maybe that is slowing down, sitting in your own space, or maybe that's just going somewhere else completely different and allowing yourself to just be without a rigid schedule of this is what I do and I have to do
Mm-hmm.
this and
The
these are the
pressure.
habits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you'd agree with me, but in this journey that I'm on with all of this new world of neuroscience, I've recognized that the foundation for habits really, back up for a second. I've noticed that people that are able to keep good habits are also people that have that work on their emotional intelligence and their emotional resistance. Because if you think that you can keep a good habit or realign a new habit, if you're still letting your old triggers get to you, it's going to be very difficult, because the trick of a good habit is to be able to do it all the time. And the
Hmm.
reason that people stop doing things that they really want to do is because they can't process something internally. And I've noticed that people that start practicing emotional intelligence, truly under listening to something that you don't like without losing your marbles, or a situation you may not like without, or emotional resilience, be able to bounce between your parasympathetic and your sympathetic. Because that really is emotional resilience, being able to go, this catastrophic thing happened. Okay, I need my sympathetic nervous system right now, right? I need to be on a high alert. But now this thing's over. So now I'm going to go down into my parasympathetic. But that's the trick, because if you want to really embody new habits, you have to be in a state with your nervous system that your brain trusts you and it's safe. And if you are on high alert, because when you hear something or when something happens that you don't necessarily like or agree with, all of a sudden you're back into that fight or flight. And we both know that magic does not happen in your fight or flight. You're surviving. So in my opinion, the first step, if you've noticed that those habits are, you're not working in line with them, that you want to see yourself become, identify how you react and what your level of emotional intelligence is, and then challenge yourself to start hearing things you don't like, because that, in my opinion, is where that power comes from. Because when you can keep your emotions at bay when you hear something you don't like, that's when your ability to control the mind. And when you can do that, those habits just get easier. I don't know. Do you agree?
I do. I love that. It is so true. That's something that, I've noticed in myself as well, because uh, I grew up with a lot of uh, negative speak just around me, to me, about me. So it's when someone says something to me that is meant more as like constructive criticism. When I was younger, I would go into defense mode
Yeah.
and I would just start defending myself. And now it's, I can feel like some residuals where it's like, oh, I feel the sympathetic nervous, like the parasympathetic nervous system already taking over, because there will be a moment where I like feel my body get on alert and then I remind myself to breathe. I'm like, it's not actually a bad thing. Like, this is room for me, is an opportunity for me to learn more about how I'm perceived by someone else and to grow and to
And add a
shift.
little humor in it. I know that
hmm
sounds silly, but
No,
the
you
joy
have
of
to have
laughing at yourself.
humor.
Oh man, okay, something that I just funny. Okay, so the other day there was something that my daughter situation happened and it bothered me, and I'm like, no, she's an adult. I'm not going to say anything. Nope, nope, nope. And I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. And the second I saw her, boom, out of my mouth. Right? I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. So sometimes we have to just know that that's a possibility,
hmm
and
And it
that
is
things just come
important.
out.
Yeah, and it is important to be able to laugh at yourself
Yes.
and to find humor in it, because if you're so serious about your healing journey and your process, it almost makes it daunting.
And I did. I
And
went upstairs and I laughed. And I go, yes, that's where I was going with it. I ran upstairs. I said to my husband, well, that lasted a minute. And I laughed about it. And I was like, why? And then when you put a little humor in it, takes off the guilt and shame. Because when you put humor into it, that's why humor works, because the guilt and shame just, right? And now it's like, oh,
hmm
there's the human in me that we all
yeah.
are. And we beat ourselves up. We beat each other up too, right? Like that's just common too. You get mad at someone, but the funny thing is we're all doing it together.
Yeah, and the humor brings back that compassionate mindset of
Yes.
like,
So true.
oh, yes, I am human, and like I I don't have to be perfect, and I'm not perfect, and that is perfectly okay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's perfectly okay to not be perfect. And, I was just doing another interview and she brought up a good point too. It's like, why do we want it? Nobody's perfect. You can't relate to people that are perfect? You don't want to be perfect. And I was like, man, that's true, because she was actually an episode on parenting. And that's true, because if kids or people can't relate to you, your kids can't relate to their parents, you're not going to have that connection. That's why teenagers don't relate to their parents, because of course as a teenager they know everything and parents know nothing. They don't relate. Right?
Right.
That's it. So that is important too, to identify that you're not perfect. You never will be perfect. And the step forward through that is to just bring light to it and to kind of work that mindset. And I don't know, that's where things change for me for sure.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. It's so true. And also, like, something that I would say about being perfect is that everyone's definition of what perfect is to them is going to be different. So,
Yeah.
like, what is a perfect day for you could be very different than what I feel a perfect day for me is. So you're striving to reach something that, in a sense, almost doesn't quite exist to the norm, to the
Yeah.
collective. So why are you striving for something that doesn't exist? You're gonna drive yourself crazy. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, live for yourself. Be that version, that person that you really want to be, and let go of the labels that society is going to put on you, that other people are going to put on you, because the most important label is how you view yourself.
You just brought something up that's really important. In any transformation, there will be people in your life along the way that they're not okay with it and
Mm-hmm.
that change you. And in my opinion, it's what pulls people back in a way, right? Like, I don't want to think that it's like from a condescending standpoint or an elevated self-worth over somebody, because it's not that. But when you're on a journey of transformation and changing, not everybody's on the same level in terms of, or how about not say level? Let's just say place, and they may not even understand. And that's a lot of the times, if you look back to the conflicts in your life, it's not a matter of that person not liking you or blah, blah, blah. It's they don't understand perspective, and they don't,
Right.
their brain, and it's not even their meaning to do that. If we can step out of our emotion and realize that people sincerely just don't get it. Like if you tried to explain, you mentioned you had a little nephew, and if you tried to explain neuroscience to your 2-year-old nephew, he'd look at you dumbfounded. But yet we know that everybody's coming from a different perspective. We know everybody's
Mm-hmm.
had different experiences, different pain, different hardship, different trauma, but yet we expect you to know exactly why I feel this way, right?
Yeah.
So when you're transforming, when you're changing, when you're becoming and embodying the person you want to be, know that along the way, some people may have a problem with it, but don't let it put you off track. Don't let it. And sometimes people want to take comfort in their dysfunction and they don't want to change. So you might have some peers and family members that want you to be addicted with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, you might have some friends, if you're trying to get fit. Oh, this is actually very common in this world, that if I have a client that's trying to get fit, they can't even hang out with their friends because they feel that if they went out with their friends would sabotage it or whatever, not support their new journey in life. So you have to be mindful of who you're doing life with. And is that
Mm-hmm.
person supporting you? And I'm not saying to write all your friends and family off, but recognize that you may need to hang out with certain people while you're going through this, because you're going to be vulnerable. And who you're doing
Yeah.
life with is going to either help you or work against you.
Yeah. And because you're also aligning yourself to a new frequency, a new version of being. So either the people that you're around are going to move with you in that alignment, or they're going to stay where they're at. And that shouldn't be a deterrent for you to move forward, to not move forward, right? Like you want to
Mm-hmm.
listen to what's going on for you, and that how people respond is going to highlight if they hold a valuable place in your life in this new part that you're transitioning into, because maybe they
Boundaries
don't.
are so important.
And the people uh who benefit from you not having, like, when you try to put boundaries in place, if people argue or try to push back, it's because they benefited from you not having those boundaries. So
Mm.
then you start to learn, like, who's actually in your corner supporting you versus who are the people that are just using you because they get something for themselves.
And they may not realize they're doing it though. I want to add
Right.
that on. Yes,
It's
I
true.
1,000% agree with that. But I can also identify times I haven't recognize that. I've been oblivious to it or not meant to do that. A lot of the times our behavior, we don't mean to do this to the other person. You might be in a stage of your addiction where you're not to the awareness part. And we know that's step one. So if somebody that's in addiction isn't aware and someone else is aware, well, that alone puts them in different areas on their journey,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
I have a feeling that you and I could make this podcast about 5 hours if we wanted to.
I feel like we could.
I think that too. Maybe we'll have to have a part 2, but let's tell our listeners, you're a wealth of information. So let's tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you, what you do for your clients, and the problems that you solve for people, my friend, because I know you solve a lot.
Yes, thank you. So you can find me on my website. That's EIPL Healing. .com, and that's also how I can be found on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under the handle Eipl Healing. And so as you've mentioned, Nichole, I do many different things. So I help people, one, overcome addictions, whether that's with a substance or food or a different habit. I also help people work through heartbreak, separation, and overall making transformations and shifts in their lives and working out of that self-sabotaging behavior and pattern. And I use most of the modalities that we've talked about today to do that.
I think
So
we all do as coaches, because if we didn't,
yeah,
we wouldn't be able to do this. It's true.
yeah. And so I pair everything with cognitive behavioral therapy, Reiki, sound therapy, and using all three of those modalities, I've created the neuroresonance method. So that's where we're really honing in on that specific pattern that you want to change, and we're attacking it on all levels, the cognitive, the energetic, emotional, because I think as we've talked about here is it really lands in all of those different spots. It starts with the mind, lives in the body, holds space in your energy. We're targeting all three of those places so we can really make a lasting transformation. So if you're interested in that, you're curious, you want to, see if the neuro resonance method is for you, I'd like to offer a free session for everybody who's listening here. I'll share a link to the booking link, and all you have to do is just click the link, fill out a time that works for you, and when you're ready to check out, in the coupon code, type in welcome in all caps, and you'll get a free session, and we'll map out where you are and to who you want to be and what the process would be to get there.
I love that. That's incredible. And if somebody's driving right now listening to this, all of this is going to be in the show notes. So we're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple. Just hop into the show notes, and all of her information will be there. Kathryn, this conversation is such a reminder that healing isn't about perfection. It's about returning to presence, to safety, and just like you said, my friend, to love. To everyone listening, whether your addiction has been a substance, a pattern, or a way of thinking, please remember that your comeback does not begin when life looks better. It begins the moment you decide you're worth saving. It's that moment that you decide that there's a problem and there are things that you can do to help. You can connect with Kathryn, as she mentioned, and all the information will be in the show notes. And again, I am Nichole McLeod, and this is the comeback season. Keep rising, keep rewiring, and keep remembering you are always worth the comeback. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on the comeback season. Please remember, the conversations we share here are for informational and motivational purposes only. We are not licensed medical professionals, and this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace guidance from your doctor or your healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare team before making changes to your nutrition, your fitness, or your mental health routines. Your health and well-being comes first, and we want you to move forward safely with the right support for your journey.